friends. This is Jesse Juarez, president of the Rotary Club of sunny Seaside, California. You're watching a presentation which was recorded live at one of our club meetings. Seaside Rotary meets twice a month via Zoom. Our meetings feature dynamic presentations by many of the movers and shakers that make Monterey County such a vibrant and hardworking community. If you'd like to join a meeting or learn more about Rotary and the work that we do, you can reach out to Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. Again, that's Seaside Rotary Club at gmail.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more dynamic content.
I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Steve McShane, to introduce our esteemed guest speaker.
Sure. Well, I'm very, very excited about this topic. This week's speaker is the chair of our local National Marine Sanctuary. In the United States, there's 13 of these marine protected water areas. We have the best, in my opinion, and certainly this board that makes up the leadership is 20 members, very diverse, representing tourism, the environment, business, and our speaker is going to introduce the sanctuary, what it means, its value and its history. A little more on our speaker. He does work for the city of Monterey in the Harbor Master's office. He is a certified diver, a recreational diver, and actually is a trainer, instructor. So we know each other through various circles, and I've just seen him to be an expert facilitator of turbulent water in so many ways. We're really lucky that he's with us today, and just thank him for his service leading the National Marine Sanctuary here in Monterey Bay. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Brian Nelson.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. Thanks, everybody, and thank you for your service as Rotarians. I think it's a great organization. I think it's wonderful, and I love an organization that starts out with a pledge of allegiance and a prayer. I think that just goes to our very core principles of who we are and what we're about. And it's exciting to be a part of this today, and I hope you enjoy it. I'll have some Q&A at the end of it, and I want to thank you all for your interest in this. So I'm going to show a 3-minute video in the beginning, a little video in the end, and I'm going to go through some slides as well. And it's a big topic. I'm very passionate about it as well. So I have a great vantage point. I worked in Silicon Valley for 30 years. I was a geek, mathematician, weirdo. I was in the Navy, sub hunter, flying around in an airliner over the ocean looking for submarines all the time in the Cold War era. So started out as a commercial diver up in the Delta, what I call the mud water, and so where visibility is 2 to 3 inches, and you get to work on pipes and cables. So my whole life has been about the water and enjoy it very much. And it's very honored to be able to serve the sanctuary for more than a decade in various positions. Now as the chair for a few rounds. But if there's one thing I learned is that in California, we realize the importance of our coastal waters, our oceans, and making sure that the conservation of those is protected for not only for us, for future generations. And it's very, very sensitive. It's always hard to describe what it's like to be underwater here, but I've dove all over the world and seen just some fantastic dives, and I get to see where most of the planet exists. Most of the planet is not terra firma like all of us live in. Most of the planet is underwater we're very diverse living species. And you may or may not know, but Monterey Canyon is deeper than the Grand Canyon. And we're a very, very special habitat that we get to play in our backyard, and we take it for granted. So divers come from all over the world to dive in Monterey. It's a unique diving experience. And there's just, without a doubt, it's very special. So without further ado, let me let me start up here and play the first video just so you kind of have a big grasp of that. I know that's a rocket ship, but bear with me.
In the 1960s, when astronauts launched toward the moon, they made an unexpected discovery. Earth is blue. We saw for the first time how vast our ocean, how fragile our planet, and how small and connected we appeared against the speckled blackness of space. Since then, our understanding of the ocean has grown immensely. And the more we learn, the more we realize the ocean is our life support. And now it is in distress. Increasing demands of a growing human population are stretching the very fabric of nature. Pollution, overuse, and climate change threaten to undermine ocean health around the world. It became clear by the 1970s that we needed to do something to save our planet and the quality of life we had taken for granted. Not long after we first looked back at our planet from space, Congress passed the National Marine Sanctuaries Act, creating a nationwide system of underwater parks with the goal of preserving our natural and cultural treasures, empowering communities to be part of the process. From the depths of the Great Lakes to the sunlit shoals of the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, today, 14 sites serve as living laboratories and classrooms for ocean understanding and stewardship. These remarkable havens have become global models for how communities are balancing protection with recreation and commercial activity. We've made progress, and by changing how we interact with the ocean, we're investing in our own future. Our fates are the same. However, there is more to do. In 2014, NOAA opened the door for new national marine sanctuaries, inviting communities around the country to nominate their most treasured places in marine and Great Lakes waters. These are your national marine sanctuaries. Together, we are making a difference for ourselves, future generations, and that bright blue planet we call home.
We are tied to the ocean, and when we go back to the sea, whether it is to sail or to watch, we are going back to whence we came.
So let me switch over here real quick. That gives you kind of a big 50,000 foot overview of the Marine Sanctuary Program. And so what I'd like to talk about now is what it is, where it is on the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and some of the high altitude things that are going on, and what is the Sanctuary Advisory Council that we are a part of. So we're one of 14. We're very proud to say that we have a 15th that's going to be coming online on the east side of our country. And it's been going through the process. We've also nominated Shumash Marine Sanctuary that's south of, it's right in the Morro Bay area that looks like it may or may not get designation this year, but we're certainly hoping to. So let's now take one of the 14 that are existing right now. We're going to talk about the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and what it means. So we talk about NOAA.
Thank you. How's Brett?
Much better. She's going to be teaching from home, at
Okay.
least through this week. And
I don't know if I interrupted somebody there.
Sorry about that. You're good to go, Brian.
Okay. So I think everyone knows the word NOAA. When we think about NOAA weather forecast, right? That's NOAA weather forecast is kind of the big deal. But NOAA is a whole bunch of things. So I want to just kind of show you the org chart, if you will, about NOAA. So under NOAA, we have, and you can see how the abbreviations are down below. We have the Oceanic and Atmospheric Research. We have NIMFS, which is the National Marine Fisheries Service. NOS, which is National Ocean Service, which we're nested under. NEDIS, which is the Satellite Information Service. and NWS, which is National Weather Service. So we get our weather forecast from the NWS. So the Marine Sanctuary is nested under NOS, the National Ocean Services. So NOAA gets a budget from Congress every year, and between all those entities, satellites that NOAA launches, and weather service, and hurricane warnings, and research, and fisheries, all that's nested under NOAA. So it's quite extensive. It's a very broad department. Our department, National Marine Sanctuaries, right now is headed up by a gentleman named John Armour. So what are National Marine Sanctuaries? Areas of marine environment with special conservation, recreation, ecological, historical, cultural, archaeological, and aesthetic qualities. In other words, sanctuaries have something special about them. So for the California coastline, we have the Carmel Canyon, we have the Monterey Bay Canyon. We also have as we go down the coast, you're going to find several areas near Big Sur, which are very specialized archaeology from the Indian tribes that were along there, and recreation and conservation as well. So you're going to find a whole bunch of things. So it was 1992 that we were designated. And I always start out, the big push in California to have a marine sanctuary is what you don't see. And what do we not see here? Oil rigs. For I think most everyone on this that I can tell probably was around in 1992. And if you were in California in 1992, the oil rigs were going to come up from Southern California. We have rich reserves under our seafloor up in this area. So the designation in September of 1992 was to make sure that never happened along our coastline. And where is our coastline? So if you look at the map on the screen, you're going to see a dotted red line. It's not the easiest thing to see, but you'll see up towards San Francisco, little town called Marin.
You know, Brian, I'm not seeing the slides. I think the screen share you have still is the video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just maybe switch the screen share. Sorry.
Oh, hang on. That's interesting. That shouldn't be. Let me try that. You see that? You do.
That's
okay.
it. You got
Yeah.
it. Yeah, thank you.
I am very, thank you for pointing that out, Steve. Steve's going to keep me on the straight and narrow. So let me go back to this slide. Do you see that slide now? And I'm going to go back one more. There's the org chart. Do you all see that? I am very sorry about that. It's very important.
No, we got it.
See these.
We're
so
good.
There you are with our org chart, and you'll see right in the center, the whale tail. That's where the Marine Sanctuary is hosted there. There's our vision statement. So here we are on a map here, and you'll see the dotted red line up above San Francisco. If you see that at the top, it goes to the city of Marin. So believe it or not, the city of Marin is part of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Then you come down the coast, you come past Pillar Point, you're going to come past Santa Cruz, you're going to come past Monterey Bay, and then down the very bottom of the slide, you're going to see Cambria, down below Hearst Castle. 276 statute miles of the coastline of California is managed by the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary out of an office here in Monterey. Pretty big, huh? So the average depth is an astounding 12,000 feet, and lots of area. And people ask how far does it go seaward? It's about 25 miles offshore, but you'll see there are some humps and bumps along the coastline there that represent the Marine Sanctuary. Down in the chart, you'll see a red dotted line around a seamount. That's the Davidson Seamount. That's also part of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And honestly, of recent, we've been doing a lot of research out there. But keep in mind, the top of the seamount's about 6,000 feet deep. So it's not something I go dive on from the surface. It's all done by ROV. And Davidson Seamount has had huge discoveries of some creatures and critters and species we've never seen before. So that's as well another marine part of our marine sanctuary here. So our fiscal year 2013 budget was 2.5 million. It's 3.3 million right now. We have a staff here and contractors here as well. So big deal, isn't it? We encompass a lot of communities and a lot of things are within that. So our marine resources, quite simply, seabirds, we have about 94 species. Actually, we have 97 now. Marine mammals, still 33. So seabirds, marine mammals are all part of that. Our fish, we have 515. The turtles, we have turtles. 4 species frequent our area here, and invertebrates and the marine algae as well. All these guys. I think one of the things that makes us very special, and I hope you've had a chance to get in a kayak and go out to the different areas to see them, but Elkhorn Slough is a massive marine reserve back in there. So we have the very deepest of deep oceans. We have near shore, we have nesting areas, and we have the kelp forest, which we're kind of famous for across the board. So there's a lot going on here. Like I said, I dive all over the world. In no place can I get coral, can I get kelp, can I get marine mammals, and can I get seabirds and estuaries all in the same spot. You can find them in different areas, but never in the same sanctuary. So we have some pretty special stuff here. This are some deep sea photos we got from Mabari over at Moss Landing Marine Labs. So we have 5 coastal counties that are adjacent to what we are, who we are. 4 urban centers, actually 12 coastal cities we have a lot to do with. The population is about 9 million people within 25 miles of our coastline. So people have a big effect of what goes on here. The different users, fishing, recreation, which includes boating, sailing, surfing, all those things. We have a lot of research for the military in our watershed as well. So if you think about it, in all of America, we are unique in every respect of what is ours. It's our sanctuary, and how are we going to take care of it in the future? So at the Sanctuary Advisory Council, one of the things in the Marine Mammal Act is really, in the Sanctuaries Act is really important, is you have to have representative stakeholders from the community. And Steve McShane touched on this a little bit earlier, and he talked about the diverse group. So we have 30 members, 20 seats, which are voting seats. So we have members of the state parks. We have 41 state parks that are joined to the Marine Sanctuary. That's really important stuff. Like Point Lobos State Park is connected to the sanctuary. Wineries, how are wineries connected to the sanctuary? All the runoff, agricultural, all the runoff come into the sanctuary. So we actually have an agricultural seat on the sanctuary. We have rec and tourism. In other words, the people that come to the coast, what do they come into the coast to do? Are they kayaking, fishing, or are they out in the wharf having their dinner? And we also have business and industry. The hoteliers sit on our board as well. We have conservationists, we have divers, we have surfers, we have commercial fishermen, and all those stakeholders have to be represented at each of the marine sanctuaries. They're not always the same seats at every sanctuary because every sanctuary is different, but the most important part of that is everyone has a voice in the table. Steve McShane is our voice at the table for AMBAG. So AMBAG, I'm sure you all know what that is. So here the communities get together, and Steve is our conduit to the sanctuary, where he can bring questions from AMBAG to the Sanctuary Advisory Council, and he can take information back from the Sanctuary Advisory Council and feed it back to AMBAG. Sometimes we have mayors and different people that sit on the council as well. But the input of the Advisory Council is incredibly important. And because we recommend to staff their direction, and they're obliged to take that direction, formulate action plans to overcome whatever emerging issue or whatever issue we have in front of us. And sometimes you get outcries from the public that we have to deal with, and we call those emerging issues. So I'll give you one example. This last summer, 2020, an energy company wanted to put in a wind farm on the southernmost border outside the sanctuary, a wind farm down by the Santa Barbara Channel. The last few years, we had a problem with ship strikes with whales coming down the sanctuary channel, Santa Barbara Channel, excuse me. And the Sanctuary Advisory Council went to the shipping industry through the Coast Guard to ask them if they could move their traffic pattern and slow down the ships going through that channel. And now we have an energy company that wants to take 270 square miles of room up, putting in a wind farm on the ocean. And we also have the other user there, which was commercial fishing. Bottom line is Sanctuary Advisory Council had to come together. We took presentations from both the energy company and also from the local communities down there and from commercial fishing. And we took all that and we said, you know what? At the end of the day, this is a great idea, wrong place, because it didn't work. And the project was stopped because of the advisory council here. There was other entities too, but like we said, we love wind energy, it's renewable energy, just a horrible place because we're already having problems, you know? So those are the type of big issues that we deal with throughout the year. Sometimes we hold emergency meetings because we have an emerging issue that has to be addressed right away. So that's just an example of the type of emerging issues that we have. We had the public coming to us about cruise ships, wanted to know how they're being regulated and what agencies had oversight. And so we take presentations from those different organizations and we do some reporting and some auditing, and we come back to the community with information and input. Bottom line is our communities and our counties have a lot of input to what happens in our marine sanctuary. The marine sanctuary provides us the science, the facts, tries to parse out the opinion and get to the root of what we need to do to protect our environment. We have a complicated job. We have to take our very important resource, the marine environment, and the human resource, and figure out how to bring those both together so we don't reach those tipping points and one overcomes the other. So that's a real dance in today's society when you're trying to make everybody happy and still conserve and protect for the future. So it's a big job. It takes a lot of bright people sitting at the table, and we are surrounded with some great colleagues and great teammates in that process. So we talk about regulated activities. And when we talk about regulations of the sanctuary, remember there's a lot of other regulations that apply. State regulations, we have EPA regulations, we have the Marine Mammal Act, which is different than the sanctuary, but we do enforce the elements of that. We have disposal regulations, we have dredging regulations. So we regulate oil and gas exploration and production, discharge and depositing any materials in the sanctuary waters, any alteration of the seabed, and disturbing marine mammals, sea turtles, and birds. I think it was last year, year before, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, drones became a big issue. People were flying drones over whales and what have you, and they were also flying them over nesting areas for birds. So we employ and recommend that the scientists get involved and figure out how this is affecting the different mammals and birds and what have you that we were charged to take a look at. And we found that the whales largely didn't care. They were fine with the drones, but the nesting birds was a huge issue. Then we had to go to the FAA and ask for special areas to be designated where no overflights of full-scale aircraft or drones would be done. So we may not be the agency that does the specific regulation, but we'll work through another agency at the same time that has jurisdiction of that. Sometimes people think we have regulation over fishing. We do not whatsoever. But there are elements of fishing that do affect the sanctuary. So we have what we call whale entanglement teams. And we've had a number of cases where whales have been entangled by recreational crab gear and sometimes commercial crab gear. So we're working with the scientists to come up with a new type of crab trap that deploys the line when they go to recover it versus having it float out there where marine mammals could become entangled. So there's a lot of research going on with that right now. And I'm sure you've all heard about whale entanglement. So we fund whale entanglement teams. We keep reports, and we're feeding that information, the facts, to the scientists to come up with better methods of fishing. So we don't regulate the fishing, but we do regulate the marine mammal, right? So we have this. We're not going to regulate fishing, but at the same time, there are things that affect our environment and what we are charged with regulating. So a lot of times we are working through Department of Fish and Wildlife or the marine mammal people to get what we need to get done. But our advisory council takes input from the stakeholders as a whole idea. Moving or removing injured historical resources. We have some important historical resources under the water, and those are to be left alone. We talked about aircraft altitude restrictions over the sanctuary is now 1,000 feet. It used to be lower than that. Motorized personal watercraft. That's a big problem. We only have about 2,800 Southern Pacific sea otters around anymore. And unfortunately, they like to either eat, sleep in the kelp forest on the surface, or sleep. And it's been shown where it can have a great effect or be fatal to those otters. So they created these 4 zones, one outside Monterey, one outside Moss Landing, Santa Cruz, and one up at Pillar Point, especially for the big wave surfers, that they operate the watercraft. So the restrictions on PWC came about from the sanctuary many years ago, and so we have zones for that. The other thing that was real popular at the Farallones is the great white shark activity. And I don't know if you know this, but great white sharks are an endangered species. They reproduce very slow. And so people were going out there chumming for the sharks. They bring the sharks in, and it's very easy to train sharks. And that's been stopped for that reason. We want to leave that alone as much as possible. Our partners are far and wide. It's every one of the communities. We have a lot of research that goes on here. I'm not going to go through all these names, but I'm sure you'll recognize them. Moss Landing Marine Labs has works with San Jose State University, CSUMB here in Monterey Bay, and we have lots of things going on. So our partnerships are far and wide, and we actually need these to get our jobs done, at least getting information. So the idea is, let's say Steve McShane brought an item to the table that we want to discuss. We take that item, we give it to staff and say, find us the expert in this field, bring them back, give us a presentation, not a judgmental presentation so much as we want information about what's going on. Is this truly a problem? And if it is a problem, what are some of the mitigating things that we could possibly do to help with the situation and hopefully eliminate it? So one of the big problems we have down at San Simeon is people like to go out and get on top of the elephant seals and take pictures with them. And then the elephant seal turns around and hurts the people, and they're wild animals. And so we have docents down there that are educating people to don't be playing around with the seals, right? And so that whole docent program and education program that goes on is a wonderful program down in San Simeon. The management plan is something we spend a lot of time in, and every 10 years we renew it. We start 7 years out, and we go through an assessment, and we take information from the stakeholders, and we bring it to the forefront of what are the most important issues confronting us. And we're just about ready to publish the new one. It's in draft form right now. You can actually go on the website for MBNS right now and see the draft form and the recommendations. But we do these assessments because we only have so much of a budget, and we have a lot of topics to adjust and look at with. And so we narrow it down to basically 10 items that we're going to put funds into, research into, and come out with a plan of what we're going to do over the next 7-8 years in resolving those matters. We never can anticipate emerging issues, but at the same time, we attack those issues that we know a lot about right now. And that can be climate change, which is a very big topic, ocean acidification. It could be resource management. It could be a lot of different things of what people want to use the ocean. Desal, remember how big desal was? Desal came to our table and we had to do an assessment from the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary standpoint. We had the experts come in, and because it's all not in the ocean, we obviously approved it. It's more of a land-based issue. The aquifers are pulling from are at the end of Salinas Valley there. So very important issue. So you'll see the coastal erosion. I don't know if you knew this, but the Cemex plant there in Seaside is the last sand plant in north of in the United States, continental United States. And through a series of lawsuits and settlements, it's being shut down finally in the last, I think this is the last year of it. But the highest erosion in all the coastal waters of the United States is in southern Monterey Bay. And they take out about 300,000 cubic yards of sand every year for creating cement. There's a documentary on a thing on what the film was called Sand Wars. And I don't know if you know this, you think, well, go to the desert if you need sand. Well, desert sand isn't very good sand for making concrete. Sea sand is the best sand in the world because of its rigid edges to the sand. You wouldn't think there'd be so many different types of sands, but sea sand is the best concrete making sand there is. And unfortunately, when you take that much sand off the coastal, there is effects because of erosion. We're looking forward to see how much that changes over time, but it'll be a good decade out before we see it. But we right now in the city of Monterey, when we're dredging here in the harbor, we're moving the sand back out to the condominium areas, the Monterey Beach there, Del Monte Beach, to help build that back up again with a natural kind of product, so to speak, without creating seawalls. So a lot of things going on in action plans, and they're wide and varied, and they're very interesting topics. And it's always open to the public, and it's been virtual for quite some time. And like you, we're looking forward to get back in person. But we found out having a virtual opening there for people, that we've had more people attending our meetings virtually than we did in person as far as the public. We also talk about introduced species, species that are coming in to our area that aren't native to it, marine debris, water quality protection, and wildlife disturbance. Those are big deals for us. Probably the biggest thing we do, and I think we do a pretty good job of, as the sanctuary is education, outreach, and communications. We feel that conservation begins with talking with people, getting into schools, getting the material out there. We have the Exploration Center over in Santa Cruz, which is like the mini aquarium on this side of the bay, to bring people in and talk about what the sanctuary is and what our resources are. We're also in schools, we're in colleges. We actually have a college seat that sits on the board. And I think that's just a big part of what we do. And we encourage anyone with a passion to, when a seat opens up, to please apply. And we're very interested in that. We have our maritime heritage. Of course, we have our operation and administration, research, and resource protection. What would it be like to know more? What would you like to know more about? So I'm going to hop over here to one last little video, and then I'll open it up to my last one. I'll be right there. Can you all see that? Can everybody see that screen?
No, not yet.
Okay, hang on. I don't want to play the screen. Okay. I'm going to close that. You guys see that, right?
Not just yet.
Okay. We see each other right now, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Now, do you see the blue screen? You guys see a blue screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, here you go.
Awesome.
And there you go. I hope you found that enjoyable, informative. And like I said, I appreciate the invitation. It's question and answer time.
Fantastic. Well, Brian, thank you so much for that. I think I speak for all of us when I say that the beauty the beauty of the Monterey Bay is something that's near and dear to our hearts, and I can say that personally. I don't often think about all the decision making and research that goes into preserving that for future generations. So I just want to say, on behalf of the Seaside Rotary Club, thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for your service and preserving that. Going to the chat box window here. And I forgot to mention at the start of the meeting, I'm hoping that we can get through as many questions as we can. Unfortunately, due to the time restraint, we might not be able to answer everyone's question, but we're going to try and go to the first question here. Let's see. And one of the first questions, how many sanctuaries are in other countries?
Well, it gave some numbers up there. So we have the National Monument Program, which in the International Monument Program, there's over 1,000 right now of some type of sanctuary. And you also see in Monterey Bay here, we have these state marine preserves, which are not a sanctuary organization, a marine protected reserves where there's no fishing. It looks like a little bit of a patchwork quilt up and down the coast. So they're reserves or preserves. Sometimes you can fish one game and not another. So I know there's well over 1,000. I think it's a great question around the world. Speaking only of marine sanctuaries, there's 14 in place right now, and the 15th is slowly coming online this year. But as far as preserves and reserves, which are state originated, along with Indian reserves, we have a lot of Indian cultures that are along our coastline, which are also indigenous land. It's like an Indian reserve, if you will, but it's held aside for that particular tribe. So it may be inland waters and have exits to seaward waters, but I don't have that exact answer, but it's a lot, a lot of oversight.
Fantastic. One of our next questions here, does the sanctuary regulate cruise ships? Can you comment on how serious of a danger the cruise ships present to the marine protected area?
Well, I think the cruise ship industry, like every other industry, needs to be managed. So the cruise ship industry comes out under the U.S. Department of Commerce, and we have a special arrangement in the sanctuaries where the Sanctuary Advisory Council came out and said, here's some things that you're going to be required to do coming in here. In our case, it's a no discharge policy. They can't discharge waste. They can't discharge anything other than engine cooling water and generator cooling water. And they have to, when they come to anchor here, because we don't have a dockside port for them, they have to reduce their emissions by, it's basically 60% when they're at anchor. In other words, they shut down their engines, which is kind of normal operation. So they have some additional restrictions that the whale watching boats don't have, and of the small craft do. And in this particular sanctuary, because we have, you may see no more than 20 cruise ships here a year, but we have literally over 100 ships a year going through the sanctuary. You saw where our boundary was, right? So there's ships offshore. In fact, if you bring up the AIS system, you probably see 2 or 3 ships going through the sanctuary today. And those are merchant ships. Those are oil ships, tanker ships, they're cargo ships. So we have those policies in place for all ships on top of the cruise ships that the public tends to see. And then we have 6 agencies that have oversight. NOAA, when a cruise ship pulls in, normally pull an inspection. I would say 50% of the time they'll do a surprise inspection, they go aboard. And then the other portion of that to make sure they're in compliance is a bar pilot boards in San Francisco or in the LA area, usually at Long Beach. And we'll be on the ship, and that's our person on the beach to monitoring what pumps are on and what things are open. There are regulations, yes, and they're probably one of the most strict. Other than Alaskan waters, we've almost tried to mirror them. They're the strictest at this point.
Our next question ties in a little bit to that. I think you explained a little bit that. Does the sanctuary have an enforcement arm? Do they, quote unquote, pack heat? What sort of enforcement actions do they need to take or follow up on?
So the OLE department, Office of Law Enforcement, is under our sanctuary superintendent, and they do write citations. Occasionally we get a PWC out here running right along the coast, right through the areas they're not supposed to be. Sometimes there's a boat that sinks, and if the owner doesn't clean it up and mitigate the issue, they will issue citations, and they will write citations if we call them out on Marine Mammal Act issues, as well as cruise ships if need be. Coast Guard is deeply involved with the cruise ship industry, so Coast Guard, we have several agencies, like I said, on cruise ships, but City of Monterey also can issue. We can't close a port. Coast Guard's the captain of the port is in San Francisco, but we can withhold security services.
Gotcha. No, good to know. I'm glad to know that those pieces are in place there. One of our next questions: with 20 people on your board, is it one of the most challenging organizations you've participated in? Is it tough to chair?
It has its moments, but I would tell you, everyone has the right passion. They all want the same thing. It's how do you get there? And you take an oath when you get on this board that you support the vision. So if everyone on the screen or on this call right now were to take an oath to support the Rotary Club's functions, you're not arguing about the end game. You're debating and finding ways to get to the end game the right way. It is challenging, but we're not a regulatory agency. We are telling the staff what to do, and they develop the regulation on what we're asking to be done. So I've just been so impressed with the members and the thought that they put into it. Because when you're on this board, you're doing a lot of reading. That's the one thing. If you have a weakness in an area, don't worry. You do all the reading, you'll be caught up. And we have so many great experts, professors, scientists that will come and help us move a topic along. We were addressing the Mylar balloons at graduation time, a year and a half ago, Steve, something like that. Graduation time, these Mylar balloons were ended up in the sea turtles. We're finding sea turtles on them all the time, entangled, dead. And the Mylar balloon people come in from out of county to sell their Mylar balloons during the AT&T and during events, and then they leave the trash behind. So we went to the schools. We had a board member, go out to the schools, and we asked them not to do we told them what was going on. We educated them. I'm a big person about education, but you probably should know that up front. Writing tickets is one method when you've done the education right. And the schools really pulled back on, things like that. And we asked stores not to bring in Mylar balloons with helium in them. If they have air, they drop where they're at, right? But if they end up in the ocean, oftentimes it's killing one of the sea turtles, the leatherbacks, and they're hard to come by. And we find them out there. I've had charter boats take pictures of them, and people don't understand how much it ends up out there and entangling some life totally needlessly. And so it's really funny how education works when you have people empowered to bring to the table issues that they're seeing. It's fun. I don't want to say it's hard. I want to say it's fun. It's a challenge, but it's extremely rewarding.
It's good to know that yourself and everyone else on that board is, to your same point, very passionate toward that end game, and the results definitely show. And now I do apologize. It looks like to respect the time, we only have time for one more question in the queue there. Again, I apologize to our guests. We couldn't get all your questions asked. Are the sanctuaries in perpetuity, or could their protection be removed?
So in the last administration, they were looking for using resources that were in some of the sanctuaries, but they went back to sanctuaries that were younger than 10 years. So Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary was never in danger of possibly having oil come back or something like that. Davidson Seamount, on the other hand, was not. But I think, the Department of Energy was looking for where the resources were and what availability. So I've always been taught never say never and never say always, right? But it's withstood the test of time. Leon Panetta headed up the charge for this sanctuary at the time, and Congress has continued to support it all along.
Fantastic. Well, Brian, thank you for that. Again, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your presentation and all this great information here. It's great to know about all the great work that you and your colleagues are doing. So on behalf of Seaside Rotary, thank you once again.
You're welcome. I mean, the whole team deserves the credit. It's just certainly not me, and people like Steve McShane and others that donate their time and energy to helping fulfill society's needs for our resources. So thank you very much for your time. I'm humbled. And if you guys have any further questions, feel free to tap on me. Steve knows how to reach me. He's a rascal about that.
Wonderful.
Come back.
All right, you guys have a great meeting. Take care, and thank you again.
Thank you. All right, everyone, I'm going to now go ahead and stop.